Good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining us for another Toolbox Talk webinar, where over the last few weeks we've been having some COVID-friendly conversations with people that might just be of interest due to their hobbies, habits, professions, projects, or pastimes, or all of the above. So I hope, once again, you've all managed to log on okay. And remember the chat button down the bottom there. If you'd like to submit any questions throughout to our guests that we might be able to present to them in a bit of a Q&A towards the end. Our guest today, as you know, is joining us live from the UK, which also makes him our first international guest on our Toolbox Talks. He lives in a small village called Atborough, birthplace of Sir Richard, possibly, which is on the outskirts of Nottingham, home of Robin Hood. Who knows, he may even be a relation. Charlie Bethel is the Chief Officer of the UK Men's Shed Association and has been for the last several years. But as you will find in this little conversation, he has a pretty impressive background in disability sport, amongst other things. So to discuss that and the state of affairs of sheds in the UK, let's welcome Charlie Bethel. G'day, Charlie. How are you?
Hi, Marty. Yeah, good, thanks. Sorry.
I had no doubt.
Confusions.
No, our fault entirely. I don't know. We knew there was a time delay, but wasn't sure about a day delay or anything like that. But, mate, thanks for jumping out of bed and joining us.
No, it's all right. My wife said to me that, tonight, and she's not very well. She's got man flu, which means she's
flu.
Yeah, which means she's nearly dead. She
call the ambulance. Yeah.
Yeah, she said, "Have you got the thing tonight?" I said, "No, that's tomorrow. It's Tuesday. It's a Tuesday."
Oh no, we didn't even think of that. So our apologies. Anyway, you look great for 11 o'clock at night.
Oh, thanks.
Just out of bed.
I look like this all the time.
Wow.
Great's not the word.
So first things first, mate, are you a relation to Robin Hood or any of his many merry men for that matter? Or?
Oh, no,
Okay.
no, not at all. My surname goes back to Wales. So,
okay.
Wales or
there
East Wales. They're very close. So,
okay, very good. Very good.
I live not far from him.
Yep.
Or where he lived in the major oak. Very big oak tree.
Okay. The oak tree.
Where he hid was
right.
Sherwood Forest. They have a very big oak tree I think it's 800, 900 years old. And there's a hollow in it, and they advertise that as where Robin Hood once hid from the sheriff of Nottingham.
Well, there you go. I'll be. So how long have you been there for?
Here I've been about 10 years. It's where my wife's from, so I obviously did what I was told and came and lived here. So. I'm from Birmingham originally. Which,
yeah. Okay. Yeah. So who do you follow in the soccer, I suppose, is important too?
Aston Villa. Not so important. Okay. Yeah, but we've just signed Steven Gerrard, who's a famous Scouser, played for England as our new manager. So
the future's bright.
Well, we may lose less. We'll still lose.
Well, that's good. Losing less is good. Yeah. So, mate, Chief Officer of the UK Men's Sheds. How did that come about? What's your background? I know you've got. I was mentioning in the intro you've got a bit of a background in disability sport.
Yeah, I suppose my journey really at university was design. I studied industrial design at Loughborough, or Luga Baruga, as Australians allegedly call it. Loughborough Uni, which is number one for design in the country. But I was involved with the student RAG, which is raising money, and got more and more involved in that, and got a job working in disability sport as a fundraiser, and then at Stoke Mandeville, where Paralympics began.
Yep.
And then working for wheelchair basketball.
Wow.
And I'd been there for 15 years, and in fairness, I was getting a bit fed up. There was a bit of stress.
Yep.
But needed a change, and then we had the opportunity to buy a new house and to renovate it. Oh, it was my father-in-law's house. Sorry. So we needed to redesign it and renovate it for the family. So we did that, and things got delayed, as they do with builders,
No,
just
no,
very slightly.
come on. Yeah.
But we were basically project managing it as well. And then the men's sheds job came up. Didn't know what a men's shed was.
Yeah.
Read about it and thought, actually, I'd quite like to do this. And at the same time, I was just about to have a hip replacement. So I applied, had the hip replacement, and then got asked to go for an interview. So
Right.
yeah. And
So you were thinking this job was going to be a bit of a break, that it didn't turn out that way?
Yeah.
A little bit of an interim thing. I remember Dave Helm as our executive officer. He first took the role as at the Windale men's shed, and he thought, this will be a bit of a break from doing what he was doing. But it's just, I think that blew out of all proportion. So yeah.
Yeah, I thought, small charity, it's going to be a lot smaller than what I used to do. But it's the job becomes the job, and I work officially 3 days a week. But
how's that turning out for you?
Yeah, it's turning out to be. That's the thing my wife usually says. I thought this was 3 days a week, but no, I enjoy it greatly, and it's incredible. So I worked in disability sport, and that was the high performance piece, but it was also the changing lives. The guy who was disabled or just broke his back, and sport saves his life.
Yeah,
it's no different with the men's shed. The transformation that a men's shed provides to people, and provides to people that didn't even realise that there was something missing in their life, or there was an issue. It does exactly the same thing, and so it's incredibly it's humbling, but it's as a cause, as a reason to get up and do the job. It's incredibly motivating.
100%. So you're still involved with the wheelchair basketball?
Yeah, I'm on the world board. I finished this next year. I've got one more year to go with it. My best mate on my board is from Melbourne. Mate called Don Perriman, who's actually really made up when I said, I'm looking for a job at men's sheds. He told me all about it. He was just like, how do you know this? And so I'm on the world board. I was in Tokyo, which was interesting. A very different environment to what we used to, but
right. In what way?
With all the lockdown pieces. I mean, Japan is an interesting country anyway, and it's there was a lot more decisions to make with Japan than any other country, because they want reassurance all the way through. It's not quite how many toilet rolls should we leave out in the toilets on a morning, but it is quite a lot of detail. But a fantastic country, and actually Don and I, because of the COVID restrictions in Japan, there was no drinking outside, but there was no drinking in your hotel rooms either. So
it's difficult.
So you were allowed out for 15 minutes for your walk. So Don and I decided to take a rucksack with us and have a few cans with us. At which point we were pulled over by, walking, but called over by this guy who said, excuse me, under COVID restrictions, you're not allowed out to drink, sir. So, all right, well, awfully sorry. Yes. So can we ask in the next 30 minutes you go back inside?
Beautiful.
And we both can do that. And we said we were from a different organisation, not from the sport we were with. So
how many cans can you throw down in half an hour?
A lot more than I can screw into a piece of wood.
Very good. So how did you fare in Tokyo? How did the UK team go?
The men did well, actually. They got the bronze, and the women finished 8th. The Australian team, the women finished 9th, and the men finished, I think, 5th. But the men were world champions in 2014, the Aussie men. So there's a healthy rivalry, a bit like the cricket. Although, Britain's doing a little bit better at wheelchair basketball than the cricket.
All right.
So.
All right, if you do say so yourself.
I do say so. Yeah, I'm not competitive at all.
Yeah.
we invented it.
Oh, of course you do. Of course. You want to go there, do you?
No, not at all. No.
So, mate, so you didn't know too much about men's sheds before you applied for the position?
No, not at all. I mean, I looked it up, and my mate Don was telling me about it, but yeah, no, not at all. And it's not as, clearly it's not as well known as it is in Australia.
Okay.
We're doing well. We've got quite a lot of open sheds now. There's in excess of 700 open sheds.
Yep.
But it doesn't have. We're still not the brand that it is in Australia. We're not the household name.
Okay.
And that's one of our objectives, is to become that. But it's still, it transforms lives, it changes lives, it makes all that difference for people. So
that surprises me. I thought it was very, very well known over there. It's like over here. I mean, how old is the association over there?
So 2015, we became a charity. We've been around since 2013. And I think men's sheds is the thing where, I think I saw something about that, or, I think I know. But we still have that. You still have that epiphany moment when you talk to people. So I was on a presentation, International Men's Day last Friday, which would have been your Thursday, obviously.
Thanks for the reminder. Yep.
So, I needed that. They did a presentation to PricewaterhouseCoopers, quite a large consultancy company.
Yeah.
And you're still getting that. Oh, we didn't know you existed. Oh, men's sheds. How does that work then?
Yeah,
and we get the prejudice as well. We get against men. Well, why men? And we drop in the stats, but we drop in the prejudice as well. We've one I had to deal with last week was a shed who wanted a site, and the way it was told to me was, we've got this building and it's a separate entrance to the school, but it's lovely, and the county council refused the men's shed on grounds of safeguarding. Not health and safety, safeguarding. Transpires after I'd sent a letter pointing out that this was probably prejudice and illegal in the UK. The shed actually sends me a note, because I copied them in. I said to them, you do realise we're actually next door to the school, not in the school. Wow. It's just like, you what? So we get that. And I was at a conference last week, the week before last, and you get people saying, why do you call yourself men's sheds? That's ridiculous. I thought you got women in some of your sheds, and we do, and it's up to the shed. I mean, we encourage men-only sessions, but have women in your shed if you want to have shed. You're all autonomous. You can do what you want, and
been there, done that. It sounds like you're fighting the same battles that we fought several years ago. Sort of thing. Exactly the same thing on all counts. I mean, from people not quite knowing or understanding what the men's sheds are. Very hard to wrap up in a couple of paragraph what a men's shed is, and then the same sort of prejudices that we sort of came across.
Yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful thing when you explain to somebody and it dawns on them, and particularly somebody who's been quite aggressive, and women.
Yeah.
Do you know what the suicide rate is? Do you know what? And they're like, oh, well, we never thought about that. Well, that's why we keep the word men in our titles. So we're getting those kind of prejudices. I mean, we had a prejudice the other day, and it was, well, they're in a church and that's why they're against us. No, they've converted a church. There's absolutely no relationship to the church whatsoever.
You have to be very careful, and it's also not a we get over here, it's also, I don't need to go to a shed, I don't have depression, or or I've got no skills, I can't go to a shed because I've got no skills. Yeah. A little thing I like to say is the only skills you need, only prerequisites to go to a men's shed is to drink coffee and talk bullshit. So.
Yeah. I mean, we've avoided that with the men's sheds in terms of it being a place for mental health. So at the moment, it's seen as a place just to go make stuff. So we've still got that mystery, which is really important, I think.
Yeah.
And, I know in Ireland, because they get a lot of health funding, it is more about the depression or the mental health piece. Right. And it's just more, I suppose it's more in the background with us in terms of how we promote within the men. But we do get a lot of stories. There's a shed in Reading near London, and it's the wife takes his husband down there and says, right, you're not leaving until you sign up. It's we do get a lot of that. So we do have a lot of positive female advocates, which is usually the wife trying to dump the husband.
I think still 90% of the calls we get to the head office here is the women, the daughters or the wives, saying, how do I get my man involved? My husband, my father involved. He really needs this sort of thing. And we say, break something that he can't fix and take him down there to get it fixed. And he won't come back again. You get him inside and he won't come out again. You nag him to come home. So very, very similar scenarios. So, So 700 sheds, is that over the whole of the UK? Is that England?
Yeah, the whole of the UK, England, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland. Our relationship in Northern Ireland is less hands-on. So we've got some sheds that are members of us, not very many in Northern Ireland. And Northern Ireland is quite unique in many aspects, and sport is one of them. As you can choose if you come from Northern Ireland to be in a British team or in an all-Ireland team.
Yeah, right.
And it's historical, political, and so sheds choose there. There are sheds. There's men's sheds Scotland as well, which have the majority of sheds. Some are dual members and they're members of ours. And in Wales, we work closely with Men's Sheds Cymru. There's about 50 open sheds in Wales. So they do very well, and they've been quite lucky with the lottery, and so have had lottery funding to support their programs. It's across the UK. I mean, we're 68 million population, so we're not achieving. Our aspiration is 2,500 sheds. But so we think that for every town or village or city where there's 4,000 people, we dumb it down when we get to a city, because you're not going to get, in London, you're not going to get hundreds of sheds. But we think where there's a conurbation, or the village I live in is about 4,000. It could comfortably house I'm one of the youngest people in the village, so it could comfortably house a shed where I live. And so we've got big targets, and we've been very lucky with funding so far. It's a challenge, and successive lockdowns, whilst ours haven't been as strong or as rigid as yours. I did see our Prime Minister a picture on the tube in London today. We've had a mask on, which I'm sure wouldn't happen in Australia, or certain parts of Australia. Lockdown has been a challenge, but we've been all right. We've done all right.
So what was your longest lockdown period over there for the sheds?
The sheds, probably 7. There was a period of 6 months. No, it wasn't quite that. It was the March. It was the March to the July. So 4 months. Yeah, 4 months in total in England. In Scotland, that went on for about 7 months, 8 months.
Yeah, right.
They were a lot more cautious. I mean, some sheds used the dispensations and said, no, actually, we're serving the community, we're going to stay open. Not very many of them did that, and a lot because of the population of the shed, the age of the guys that are running the shed, and because they were over 70s, they didn't want to open the shed, and therefore nobody was going to go into the shed, and understandably. But I have to say most sheds now are open and thriving, and
Yeah.
you don't necessarily see the masks on. I went to a couple last week for International Men's Day, and you know, they were distanced, and there's been a lot of positive learning as well in terms of using rotors for the shed. So you don't, you know, a small space, you don't have 20 people in a small space, you might have 13, but they open more days, and therefore they're more accessible as a result. But there's a lot more waiting lists as well. You know, and it's been horrific, lockdown, but in the main, people are coming back fighting and understand it more. And actually, it's been a great PR opportunity when you think about defining loneliness or defining mental health.
Yeah.
Because more and more people in the media have talked about it, whereas you know, in the past, that's not been something that's been at the forefront as much. And it's a pandemic, isn't it? Loneliness. You know, we've got this COVID pandemic, but we've had loneliness there as a pandemic, and male suicide. I mean, the fact that male suicide is the biggest killer of men in the UK under 46. You know, and I know that's a worldwide trend in terms of more men generally killing themselves. You know, 3 out of every 4 suicides is a man. You know, these aren't talked about pandemics, but they started to get talked about more because of lockdown. So there have been, despite all this death and illness, there have been some positives that have come from it, with us. But we've not had the same sort of rigor of lockdown that you've had in Australia, or in certain parts of Australia for sure. So.
Yeah. Okay. So what's the state of affairs now? So what that must have made your job very hard. From you know, you got these big targets, you want away from more sheds, and then experiencing 6 to 7 months of lockdown in areas, certain areas, it makes it very hard to promote more sheds. And you say you have, you just mentioned you have waiting lists at a lot of the sheds. What's the hurdle there to opening more sheds? Just funding?
No, it's no, because of the model we use, it's generally finding properties. That's the challenge. And a shed in the UK is relatively small. It's I don't know, a space of about 5 meters by 10 meters is a normal shed, or quite a comfortable shed. We have sheds in morgues, disused morgues.
Thank God for that.
But, it's although they try. You know, a lot of church premises. There aren't as many that are in warehouses. There's a couple of large, you know, extra large sheds, and we see the pictures of sheds in Australia and, you know, some of the video clips. But we don't have the same land opportunities. And don't get me wrong, I accept, you know, that it's still a challenge in Australia. So. But that's our main challenge, and we're trying different ways. We're trying to work with the churches. We're trying to work with allotments. I mean, a shed I went to see on Friday, it had a couple of people that objected, that were women on the allotment, and you know, fantastic shed, absolutely amazing, serving the allotment that it's based on incredibly. But the objections were things like, well, if men come on to the allotment, they're going to steal our vegetables. And another person put, well, allotments are for poor people, and you know, this is taking away 2 spaces for poor people. The person who wrote that owned 2 Porsches and had 2 plots herself. So, you know, it's again,
the stereotype of a shedder over there is a rich, pedophilic vegetable eater. Vegetable thief.
Yes, absolutely, because they're old and therefore they, you know, as you say, paedophile. It's you know, we have an issue with male teachers over here, male primary school teachers. You know, there is a real lack of male primary school teachers, and again, there's some research going on at the moment. It's because of the perception. And yet, I remember my best primary school teacher was Mr. Dale, and he was an American, God rest his soul, and God forgive him. But he was an American, and he was an inspiration. you need that, men, boys need dads, and boys need male role models. And
Yep.
and it's not normal within society to give that,
Mhm.
let alone, society then holds it back by making claims about men.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, there are men that do things that are not appropriate, but it's not unique to the Y chromosome. So
Yeah, 100%. So what is your demographic of the Sheds? Are you getting younger people in there? Like we say, it's a place for
yeah,
folks with time on their hands, for men with time on their hands. So it could be, people that are out of work, or just the retirees or whatever. Predominantly type retirees, but
yeah. So the last survey we did was 2018, the last big survey, and 90% were over the age of 50. 500 filled in the survey, which is one of the great things about men's sheds as well. They're very responsive.
that's great.
And 69%, that magic number, were over the age of 65, which is our retirement. However, we have seen in the lead up to lockdown, before lockdown, we've seen more and more young people coming to sheds. And we're now starting to see sheds opening in an evening.
Yeah, great.
And so we do need to do the survey again. We've been waiting for a lot of things went on hold. You don't want to ask people how they're feeling about the men's shed during lockdown, because it's not going to give a sensible answer. But we're seeing, with people being made redundant, with unemployment rates, we're seeing more and more people come to sheds. And we're seeing more sheds actually open to women as well.
Good.
But they're coming with challenges. One of them said, we've got these 3 women in our shed recently. How do we manage them, because they don't shut up when it's the tea break? but it's not an issue with women. It's an issue with the person that likes to talk a lot. And
right.
Well, how do you manage it if it's one of the men? Or we tell them to shut up. Well, tell the women to shut up. Maybe tell them before the conversation, just so this is, we're going to leave it for Fred or John or Simon to talk. But it's so I'm in Australia, aren't I now? So Bruce to talk, or it's the problems aren't necessarily gender specific, but one of the issues is we don't talk generally, unless we're put in a safe environment, and we're quite happy to listen to other people.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing how the walls come down in the shed? The stoicism, the male stoicism can come down once you feel that comfortable environment. Yeah, those walls come down, and the emotions flow. The conversation flows. Yeah.
There's a guy now. He has passed away, but a guy called Michael who was in a shed. I went to see just not long before lockdown, and he was effing and a blinding and using the C word, and he'd worked in oil, and he was a welder, and he'd been in Australia for a number of years.
Yep.
And and he was a big burly guy, as I remember him, And then he started telling me just about how accepting everybody was. And this guy who'd just been effing and a blinding and calling so-and-so an Ek, a C, and this and that, he just then started tears in his eyes just about how accepting everybody had been in the shed. And it wasn't me. I didn't do any probing questions or anything like that. He was just, he just stopped, thought for a second, just went, and everyone's just so accepting. And it was like being born again, and it was like a new life. And it's changed my life. And his kids have written to us, since he passed away, about the impact of this, and this guy he wouldn't have taken any crap at all. He was, and he just started crying, and an absolute extreme about the shed, but just felt safe, and so I feel very fortunate to have shared that, shared that moment, and it's I don't think I'll forget that, because we don't, do we? Somebody I was talking to on Friday was, and I don't know how true this is, but his comment was, as men, another man that we don't know comes in front of us, and we've got 100,000 years of evolution that tells us that this man's going to kill us. So, and I don't know how true that anecdote is, but he was saying, so we automatically react, he's going to kill me. It's like,
wow.
So it is hard for us to respond, but in some ways, what he said there to in this presentation does that actually sound true? We do have a who is this?
Defensive.
What are they? Yeah, it's
right. I've never thought of it like that.
Yeah, I need to Google it. I should have Googled. I was going to Google it before tomorrow, so I apologise.
I can call back. Same time tomorrow.
Yeah, my wife will love that. She's got man flu, as I mentioned.
Oops. Mate, I'll just say we've got a couple of questions here.
Sure.
Before we let you go back to bed, let's see. Do you have national shed insurance? There you go.
No, we don't. It is a hot topic. A lot of people ask. So there are probably about 4, maybe 6 insurance companies operating in the UK, or brokers operating in the UK around sheds. And unless we decided, so the way insurance works with us in the UK, unless we decided that was the day that everybody paid their insurance, we wouldn't be able to broker a deal that would be appropriate, with appropriate levels. Some sheds get free insurance because they're attached to a church and they've been able to wangle that through the church. Some sheds are involved in hospitals and the hospital covers it. Some sheds are involved in hospital grounds and they have to pay it themselves, and it's a lot more money because of for whatever reason. So no, we've not managed it. We've looked at it. We've looked at the economies of scale, and to be honest, we don't think it's going to make any kind of saving. We were going to go out to tender on it, but the feedback we kept getting from insurance companies and from some sheds was, it takes away from the autonomy that all the sheds have as well. Now, that said, there are the sheds that are paying £700 or £1,000 and get quite cross at that, but most sheds pay around about £300. And we're trying to just create more documents in terms of what is appropriate insurance and what isn't. So we have a thing called product insurance, whereas some brokers will say, oh, you need to pay for this, and others will say, oh, we give it you free. But actually, you don't necessarily need it if you've got employer's liability. And employer's liability, well, we're volunteers. Well, no, employer's liability it covers you if something you've created does cause damage, and it's not a lot of money. And then we have trustee insurance. So we're just trying to help sheds navigate what it is they really need for the size of what they are and what they are. So no is the answer. It's complicated, and we probably get a better deal with sheds at the moment without that. You hear stories from some organisations, and a lot of it is scaremongering. But if you sign a deal with one insurance broker, all of a sudden the premiums start to increase, and it becomes a bit of a monopoly. And I don't know how true those stories are, but the insurance seems relatively low here. Compared to what it could be.
So what's predominantly the role of the association over there? You said you want to promote promotion.
So what one is to get men's sheds as a household name. The other is facilitating. So we help set up men's sheds. We don't go and do the setting up of the shed, but we try to bring together the different partners, whether that's the local authority, and we have ambassadors, volunteer ambassadors, who go out and help do that, have men's meetings in a pub or somewhere. So we do that. We offer advice, and they offer advice as well on that, the ambassadors that we've got. Keying in with local authorities or charities or whoever is trying to set up those. We do discount packages for the sheds. But the key thing is the networking that we create. We create those connections between sheds. Which they find invaluable. But we do have we have the ability for a scale, that we can get a partnership. We're about to announce a partnership with a computer company that will be discounts, but also training for shedders, free training.
Excellent.
It would have been really useful pre-lockdown. But you know, they've come on board, and it's a worldwide company based in Ireland, and you know, we're about to announce them. But we have other deals with companies such as Ronseal and Axminster, which is a tool making company. I mean, if you get a discount on one of them, you've paid for your membership, you know, 5 years time, you know, for 5 years.
Great. Yeah.
And we charge £24. So what's that? $40, $48, a year. So it's not a lot. You know, it's a cup of coffee a month. We charge for the shed, not for individuals. The individuals are free. So yeah, facilitating, advising, but connecting, and then the household name. And we feel we can do that. We've had some complaints, you know, why are we not in the national media more? Because our strategy is more regional media, and you know, we don't see UKMSA in the newspapers, and our aim isn't UKMSA. Our aim is men's sheds. You know, we're not precious about us. It doesn't matter. You know, and we've not really marketed ourselves to sheds. So we're only probably 56% of sheds are members of us. And we've never really, we're about to start marketing ourselves more to the sheds and say, look, these are the benefits. But we've just tried to help develop them. What we found is the more shed, that's grown in the three and a half years I've been involved, that's grown from 33% of sheds to 56% of sheds. So we're finding the newer sheds become members straight away, and a lot of the older sheds are members. But we're just going to start marketing those benefits more, because we should do, because they probably don't realise that those benefits are there.
So over there, I mean, there's the camaraderie within the shed, but is there also the feeling of the brotherhood of being a part of the association and all that sort of stuff over there, like it is here? It's like we're a part of this big thing, you know, and we don't want to know what each other's doing. And
there is. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's some. I mean, one of the stats I give is 97% of shedders say they've made new friends as a result of joining the shed. But 3% are still miserable sods, and and we've got that. So we had the last physical annual general meeting we had. All the sheds bar one turned round to us and said, and it was about the membership fee, and they said, "This is ridiculous. You're not charging us enough. You know, we love being part of you. You're doing all of this work. You know, we're just, I'm just sat there going, what the hell is going on? Have I fallen asleep?" And one of them turned around, you know, there was one that turned around and went, well, if you put the fees up, we're not going to be members anymore.
Damn if you do, damn if you don't.
But everybody else just turned around, you know, of the probably 36 sheds that were there. So they don't, you know, it's an annual general meeting. It's, they're going and having fun rather than coming to the 30-40 minute meeting that's boring. Yeah, they get it. They get it. A lot of sheds get it. The whole movement, and we look at, you know, these are the benefits of joining us and paying your fee. But actually, the main one at the bottom of that is supporting the movement, supporting that movement that's unfortunately Australian. Yeah, supporting that movement going forwards.
You started wheelchair basketball, apparently. So
well, we started men's sheds as well. You just don't realise it,
right?
And we've just not rewritten history yet. So all right, the Queen's British, well, German.
How's she going, by the way?
She's doing all right.
Yeah,
she's doing all right.
Good. All right, here's one person. With your background in wheelchair sports, do you find yourself advocating for people in wheelchairs to have access to sheds?
No more than, I think what I do is I give a practical perspective. And again, talking to sheds, some sheds have been quite apologetic knowing where I've come from and said, oh yeah, we don't have access because we're up 6 steps, you know, a set of flight of 5 steps, or we don't have an accessible toilet. But the shed I was with on Friday, they were just installing a disabled toilet, and they had the door going outwards. And I actually don't think this shed had actually spoken to me about it, but some sheds have phoned up. So no, not really. Other than sheds setting up, we do talk about access. But things are common sense. Open toilet door opening outwards makes it accessible for a wheelchair, and it's not just about wheelchair users. It's just very simple things that make a difference. But that said, I was involved in recruiting our patron, our first patron, our only patron at the moment, who's a guy called Chris Fisher, RPT, and he's a member of the Royal, the Worshipful Company of Woodturners, and he's blind, totally blind.
Yeah, wow.
And he's the first totally blind woodturner ever to be a member of the Worshipful Company of. And the Worshipful Companies are things that in England or the UK that have lasted for, some of them a century, some of them, Worshipful Company of Goldsmiths, Worshipful Company of Mercers, which are companies. So that they're very historical, very traditional, and they have a small grant to give out, some of them for charity, and that's why they were set up, to look after each other. And the woodturners, they examined him like they would examine anyone, and you watch him and you think he's a cheating little git. There's no way he's blind. But you learn things from him as well. Blind golfers, for instance, would feel the ground that they're hitting off, whereas most golfers wouldn't do that. But actually, it gives them an advantage, because you can work. Well, actually, I'm hitting off. I mean, most people that play golf actually don't pay that much attention and just try and wallop the ball around. But as a woodturner, he feels the grain more than we do. He looks at the speed combined to what he's turning and the materials. So there's a lot of learning there for sighted people.
So we look at that. We look at him. He's got a disability, but in a way, he's got a superpower that we don't. He's got an ability that we don't. So
and he's he can hear. I mean, we all hear it, but he doesn't ignore it. He hears the wood starting to rattle before it flies off and knocks somebody out. Whereas is that
how he lost his sight in the first place?
But we would ignore that, though. It's he's not that happens very often in my workshop, but no, he's remarkable, Chris Fisher, and Google used him this year for World Mental Health Day. Google created a film around him, and it's the men's shed, because Chris is a patron, he said, look, I want to film some of it in the men's shed. So it was done in a shed in Derbyshire, not far from where he is. But he's tremendous guy, and it's not just about the wheelchair. It's not that I'm advocating blind people in all of the men's sheds, because Christ, he watched so many 100 hours of or listened to YouTube videos of wood turning. But I mean, it's equality, and it's part of my who I am, and it's just are you thinking about access? But access isn't just for the wheelchair user. It's for the guy with Parkinson's or a bit of a shake, or I was in it, and it floors you a bit. We had a conference, and there was we have an exhibition at our Shedfest conference, and there was a wood carver there who makes friezes for churches, and absolutely unbelievable. And this guy comes up to him who's a quadriplegic, tetraplegic, so very much reduced hand function, flattened hands because he's broke his neck. And they're talking, and the guy goes, have you tried to use a Dremel? Like a very small spinning carver. It's explaining how you could use that to do all the carving and create exactly the same quality of pieces of work. And the guy who's this traditional carver is advocating new technology to enable the guy who's got an impairment. Brilliant. And we all have impairments of different kinds. It's just some of them are more restrictive, I suppose. So So no, I'm not the disability police, but I'm humbled when I see sheds
That's great.
Just doing it because they want to look after each other. They care about their mates.
Brilliant. And just one last thing, we did in the emails we sent through, you mentioned something about the Charter of Wellbeing in Craft and DIY. So what's that all about?
I've never heard of that. No, we're a lady, and I suppose a little health warning on what I'm about to say. A lady contacted us and said she wanted to give us some money, and this was just before lockdown started, so it's been a long time coming. And her husband had depression, and he managed that through playing sport. And I think that's one of the things about the shed. You don't have to be fit and healthy to go to the shed and do sport. And he played football, and he played golf or soccer and played golf. And he broke his leg playing football. And the day he was told that he wouldn't be able to play football for another year, he did click and collect, and he bought a rope, and 30 minutes later he was dead. And her comment to us was, if only we'd known about men's sheds. But she was very cross and angry with the manufacturers and the retailers with the ease in which you could buy a rope. And in the UK, and I'm not sure it's the same in Australia, but in the UK, hanging is the most popular choice for men. And men are more successful at suicide. Women try to kill themselves through suicide more than men, but hanging and men are a lot more successful, which isn't necessarily the best thing in the world to be successful at. No. So we talked, and we felt, well, actually what we could do as men's sheds, more than the Samaritans, because if you stuck Samaritans on a rope, the manufacturer is going to say no way, and so is the retailer. So we said, well, actually, if we put a men's sheds poster up, or we put a question up when somebody buys something on click and collect, have you heard of men's sheds? Click here. It might create that detached, that non-evasive connection, which a men's shed does. And naturally we do that, and it might create that. So we're launching a campaign for the Charter of Wellbeing in Craft and DIY to get people to sign up to say, yes, we want safe wellbeing, and a more accessible environment for craft and DIY, and then getting companies to say, okay, well, as us signing up to that, we'll sign up to the Zero Suicide Alliance in the UK training, which is a free 30-minute online training session, and we'll get all of our employees to do that, or we'll connect to Mind, which is mental health training or something like that. So we see that we've got an opportunity to influence the DIY, the craft industries, and engineering as well, to connect them to suicide awareness or mental health awareness in a non-evasive way. And I think that's the beauty of the men's shed. So we're launching that the end of this month, but with a official launch. So we'll get people signed up before we launch it, so we know we're successful. But then we're going to go to the House of Lords and do that, so that we get the awareness with MPs. And again, heightening the profile of men's sheds. And it sounds a bit self-serving, but actually I think we're best placed. You're not going to get a Samaritan's label stuck next to ropes, but you might get men's sheds, and that might, if it saves one life, we've done our job.
If nothing else, it's there, and it doesn't have to be, you're doing this, you think you're contemplating suicide. It could be just a link to get some help with your DIY project sort of thing. Join a men's shed. There's a prevention's better than the cure sort of thing. So they're getting involved with the men's shed, which is, going to be better for the better outcome. Yeah,
no, absolutely. And that's, we're not the best kept secret. We're being more and more well known, but just having that, having it on a receipt, it's just that little spark that probably, as my wife does, she checks the receipts, and
which yours anyway.
Yes.
Empty your pockets. Empty your pockets, Charlie.
But it's just that, what is a men's shed? Hang on a minute. Until we're well known enough, until we're that household name, let's have that little bit of intrigue. And and let's put people into a better place. You know, you walk, it's a really odd place. Our DIY stores, you know, they're just lots of men wandering around reading labels, which we never do anyway. But you know, you might see the women around the wallpaper, but and the paints. But when it gets down to the screw aisles and things like that, so so yeah, that's something we're doing. I don't know if you've done that in Australia, any campaigns like that. We've not done campaigns, but this is our first reach into campaigns, and hopefully one that will make a difference and save lives.
That'll be great. You'll have to send us some links after this. Stay up a little bit later and send us some links, and to that video too you were talking about, and we'll put it on the Shed online for people to follow up, and a link to the UK Men's Shed Association, whatever. But mate, we better let you get back to bed and your sick wife. Tell her it's not man flu. If it was man flu, she's got no idea. She's got an ambulance. She's got a cold. Tell her to harden up. I've got a saying over here: give her a cup of cement. Tell her to harden up. You know?
I like that,
mate. Thank you so much for your time. Thanks. Sorry about the mix-up again. And
my fault as well.
But it's great speaking to you. And mate, hopefully you can make it over to our conference in March next year. That'll be good. Well, I'll go knock on Dave's door and tell him to shout you a ticket or something like that.
That would be amazing. And you know, thank you for inviting me. I mean, you know, come to the home of Men's Sheds. So thank you very much. I'm very humbled and honoured, which is why I jumped out of bed.
Good man. All right. So, thanks, Charlie. Good on you.
All right. Cheers. Stay safe.
Thank you.